What makes a great trustee more than anything else is the nature of his or her character. And so what I'd love to do on today's video is talk about 7 character traits that specifically can distinguish between someone who is an okay trustee, maybe good enough, to one who is great. And of course, we are living at a time when there is a shortage of trustees. There's even a shortage of good trustees, and there's certainly a shortage of great trustees. This is a completely solvable problem, which is why at the Freedom Studio, we have committed ourselves so much to helping to cultivate and educate trustees. So you may be one of those people who is interested in becoming a trustee, or at the very least, you may be curious about what are these traits so that you can better identify trustees to help you when you need one. And you can also hold trustees to a higher standard. So there are many benefits to knowing what these traits are, and let's dive in. By the way, if you're brand new to my work, I'm David Greenberg, and I'm the founder and managing director of the Freedom Studio. We're a private education organization, and we're really dedicated to one mission, to helping you be great. So I invite you to explore a little bit what we have to offer, and in the meantime, let's dive in. The first character trait, of course, of any great trustee is that they are moral. Now, morality, as you may have realized and may have already discovered, is not a religious concept. Religions do pay attention to morality, and every religion is going to have something to say about it, but morality is not a religious concept. Morality is simply the objective understanding of the difference between right and wrong. It's the recognition of self-responsibility, the principle of non-aggression, to not harm others, and of course, the principle of self-defense, to defend oneself against harm. So to be moral is simply to embody these 3 aspects of morality. I would also put forth that to really be moral, one needs to be a constant student of natural law, which includes the science of morality, what has also been called objective morality, as it ties in very closely to natural law and the way things operate in reality. So one can learn that as more people are moral, you get a certain positive outcome. And then when you have more people that are immoral, of course, you get an aggregate negative outcome. So to be moral is simply to know this holistically, to know it both intellectually, but also intuitively, and to embody that to the highest degree possible. Naturally, if we are entrusting others to manage assets for the benefit of someone, then having them have a high moral character is going to be extremely important. The second big important character trait, which ties closely into the first one, is trustworthiness. This almost goes without saying. After all, we call it a trust for a reason. And trustworthiness is the currency of exchange, or a currency of exchange that we use to interact with, principally because we all have free will, and because we respect everybody's free will, we can't really fully control for the outcomes. In other words, we can't really make other people do things that we want them to, nor can we always predict what they're going to do. So we need a way to gauge if someone's going to follow through on their commitments, if they can be counted on. Of course, that is trustworthiness. Trustworthiness takes a lifetime to build up, and it can be destroyed with one act. So we can see how important it is to cultivate trustworthiness. And there are just different ways. There are, of course, different ways to measure that. The degree of transparency that someone has about their background, about what they've done up until now. Character references is another way to validate trustworthiness. There's an expression, by their fruits ye shall know them. And in other words, you can tell the nature of a man and their trustworthiness by what they've done in the past. right? It doesn't mean that people haven't made mistakes and they would need to correct their ways, but generally speaking, someone's track record is going to speak to their trustworthiness. And so we want to pay attention to that. And trustees, when we look to trustees, we need to be able to gauge that that we can count on them, and that we can count on them to look out for the best interest of the beneficiaries of that trust, and actually to prioritize those interests above their own with respect to those assets. So trustworthiness is the second and very important character trait that we look for in trustees. The third character trait is honor and being honorable. Honoring one's commitments, being true to one's word, following through on what one has done, one has agreed to do. Someone who can be counted on. It's very closely related to the first two, and that's kind of why I'm presenting them in this order, because to be honorable is also to be trustworthy and also to be moral. In the commercial realm, especially in the public, honor and dishonor have taken on a particular meaning, and even there, having a trustee who can be honorable with respect to the public is also going to be extremely valuable. But of course, honor, I'm also using it in the private sense of someone who, in any situation, who agrees to any obligation, that they can be counted on to follow through. And if they run into a situation where they believe or feel that they can't for some reason, they're going to just speak up to those whom they have made the commitment in order to address that and figure out a way forward. The fourth character trait that may be a little less obvious and is more specific is to be practiced in equity. To be practiced in equity. And the reason is because equity is one of the highest legal jurisdictions that exists. It's above common law. It's certainly above statute and code. And by being able to embody the spirit of equity, but also the substance of being able to bring equity to matters that may require a resolution, the trustee is going to prove to be much more valuable. And this is going to be particularly true in cases where a trust, despite our best efforts and best practices, somehow comes under scrutiny. For example, in a court or some kind of legal claim, having that practice in equity is going to allow that trustee to defend the trust and its interest much more effectively. So being practiced in equity is going to be very helpful, and being practiced in equity will feed into the other character traits that we've talked about, because equity is all about fairness, doing the right thing. And so we want to draw in the morality and the trustworthiness in order to do that. And of course, the honor. The next character trait is kind of a unique one. You probably haven't heard this one before, even if you have been studying this material and trying to figure out what really makes a great trustee. And that is to be invested. To be invested. Now that can be taken financially, but it can also be taken spiritually. So in other words, if a trustee is agreeing to accept the office of trustee for a particular trust, it's going to be ideal if they're invested in the outcome of whatever that trust was set up to do. What is the purpose of that trust? What is the nature of the trust and the assets that it holds? Why does that trust exist? When a trustee can be invested in that outcome, even if they're not necessarily going to benefit from from the assets in the way that the beneficiaries are, then they're much more likely to make their best efforts and really invest their own time, energy, and attention into the trust and what it requires. Invested could also mean being good at making investments. So kind of a double meaning there. So sometimes or often trustees, because they have control of the assets of a trust, they may want to invest those assets to grow them, to grow the value of the trust over time. So being invested also means being investment minded, and it means being able to make proper investments and having a stake in those investments. So both the practice of investing and also the state of being invested in the outcome and purpose of the trust. The sixth character trait is being education-minded, or just being a lifetime student. A great trustee knows that they're not going to ever be able to study all the material that they could in order to properly and faithfully dispatch their office. It's more a matter of, hey, I'm committed to this, so I'm going to continue to study over time. I'm going to, continually upgrade my knowledge and understanding, acquire new knowledge, and put into practice and test what I've learned. So that really boils down to being a lifetime student. The learning never stops. As one of my mentors is fond of saying, there is no arrival point on this journey. It's a continuous journey of leveling up. That applies to me, as to you, as to everyone. So a great trustee is going to know this, and they're going to be perpetually and forever committed to studying, even as they step more and more into their professional role. The seventh and final trait that I wanted to bring forward to you today is commitment, or the trait of being committed. Trustees are committed to their craft. And sometimes when a trustee is working with a particular trust, it may not be a full-time endeavor. So in my mind, someone who really wants to be a great trustee, they are going to be fully committed to that. There's probably a good chance that it's going to be their profession. In other words, kind of like a career, essentially what they do. And so they may be involved with different trusts, many different trusts in that ecosystem, but as a professional, they're showing up pretty much as a trustee. Because again, they're going to recognize that to really master, to be a master at trusteeship, to be great in this role, they kind of have to devote their life to it. It's a lifetime study. Like anything anything related to mastery is going to require a lot of investment of time, attention, effort, practice over time. So when you have a trustee, someone who's willing to be full-time, or at least fully committed, and just keep investing more of their time and energy, they're much more likely to be great and to be highly successful in dispatching that duty. So those are the 7 traits. Now, what we do at the Freedom Studio is we help to cultivate, nurture, and educate trustees, because I've already recognized, as I've told you, and I will continue to say, we have a shortage of trustees. So this is a solvable problem. What we've done is we've created the Trustee Network. The Trustee Network is one of our member tiers. It's very accessible, it's very affordable, it's a monthly membership, and it's all about learning how to operate in trusts, how to create private equity trusts, which is the type of trust that we educate about, and of course, how to find or even be a trustee, or maybe even both. So if that resonates with you, if you've recognized the importance of having great trustees and you're already in the path, maybe you're already in the process of learning how to set up trusts, maybe you've realized that you need great trustees, or you have a desire to have more effective trustees in your ecosystem, you may want to consider joining the Trustee Network. If you want to explore that option or any other option that we offer at the Freedom Studio, you can just go to thefreedom.studio. And you can learn all about it. You can also learn about our free workshops, all the other great content we create, as well as other member tiers that may be of interest to you. So I appreciate that. If you got value from this video, go ahead and smash through that like button. That really helps us to get this important knowledge out to more people. And if you would like to receive more value like this and hear more from me and from our community and our team, you may want to consider subscribing. So thank you very much. I appreciate you spending a little time with me on this video, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.